Hi, everybody. My name is Neil Thompson. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is a public speaking course called Teach the Geek to Speak. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Iris Wagstaff, and I was keen to speak with her based on her work with the American Association for the Advancements of Science. And her job is to increase participation in STEM. And what really put that in my mind is I wrote a book about promoting STEM to kids. So I really wanted to hear more about the initiatives that she works with in her job and how public speaking factors into that. Welcome to Teach the Geek Interviews, Iris.
Hi, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here as well. So I did a little bit of research on you, and I saw that your background is in chemistry. So what exactly motivated you to study chemistry?
Oh, wow, that's a bad question. So I am from Goldsboro, North Carolina, a small town of about 50,000 people. Most people know the town by the Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, which housed all the F-15s and F-16s. But as a child growing up, I had a lot of interests. It wasn't just science. So I was heavily involved in the arts. In high school, I was heavily involved in politics and student government. So I was, science was one of my loves. And it wasn't until, I guess, high school, maybe 10th or 11th grade when I took AP chemistry. I hated biology. I wanted nothing to do with life sciences or living things or plants and animals. So when I got to the second year again, I loved the first year of chemistry, but it wasn't until I got to the second year of chemistry and we did kind of like reverse target synthesis where we were starting with the end product and had to work our way back to the beginning. And I was like, it clicked for me. I could see like electrons moving in my head. It just really, it really connected with me. And more importantly, the biggest thing that connected with me was just the power of chemistry to make our world a better place. Chemistry is all around us. It's in every product that we use. We don't realize it. It's in all the clothes that we wear. It's involved in, making all of the products that we use. So just the fact that chemistry was everywhere and all around us, really made me interested in going into that field. And also because I had an awesome chemistry teacher, Ms. Cheryl Austin, which I still work with today, developing outreach and volunteer programs in my hometown of Goldsboro, North Carolina.
Okay. You know what? We have another thing in common then. I also hated biology in high school. I remember it was probably one of my lowest grades in sciences, actually. Believe it or not, even lower than physics, and physics is typically difficult. But with biology, we had to draw stuff, and I'm a terrible drawer, so I'd always get poor grades in the drawing part. So I was just like, man, let me get past it.
Yes, I was definitely on the reaction and equation side.
Yeah, for sure. Also, just from doing a little bit of research on you, I saw that you got a PhD as well. So what motivated you to pursue your PhD?
So I've had several lives, several lifetimes, and I get a lot of questions, especially on LinkedIn from students on how did I, go from the chemical industry to STEM education to science policy. So I went to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro as an undergrad and got a bachelor's in chemistry. I was the only African-American to get a bachelor's in chemistry at that time, 1992. And then I went to North Carolina A&T State, so Spartan Pride and Aggie Pride, and I got a master's in chemistry. But I came from, a low-income background, divorced single parent, and I watched my mom struggle. So I was really focused on, really trying to provide for my mom and make a better life for her and myself. So after I got my master's in chemistry at A&T, I went straight into industry because I wanted to make money. I wanted to make a better life. So I wasn't interested in going beyond a master's at that time. So I actually wound up working at Roman Haas Company, which most people probably never heard of, but they invented acrylic polymers. And so they are responsible for the acrylic paint revolution, right? So everything that you see that has a coating was basically invented by the Roman Haas Company, which is now Dow Chemical. So I worked there for 15 years as a project leader working on basically reversing engineering products and solving customer problems. So I worked in that area for 15 years, but my other life, my personal life, has been a life of 25 years of outreach and volunteer work in the community. So for 25 years, I've been developing informal science programs in the community. I've been working with teachers. I've been doing workshops for parents, give them resources and information to help them, better assist and support their children. So I looked at, one of the things that happened was while I was at Roman Haas in Pennsylvania, my mom got sick. So I always share this story because it changed the trajectory of my life. So I actually left a very lucrative, very successful career in the chemical industry in Pennsylvania to come back to North Carolina and care for my mom in 2008. And then she passed away, sadly. And then that led me to go back to school, start all over in the area that I had been doing so much volunteer work. So I decided to get credentialed a PhD in science education from NC State. And then from there, that led me to my work in STEM education and now science policy here in Washington, D.C. at AAAS.
Interesting. So you worked 15 years before you even thought of going back for a PhD. I know with most people, they tend to go for a PhD not too long after they graduate from undergrad. So I guess as a mature student, what was that like?
Oh, it was extremely difficult. Like I said, I have 3 books in me to write. Just, perseverance, starting all over at a time of like grief and mourning, and being able to start a whole new career in my 40s. So it was extremely difficult. Again, after having a very lucrative and successful career in the chemical industry, to go back to school and be a student again. But one of the good things is because I had that chemical industry background, I was able to bring that experience to the School of Education department, where most of my classmates were all teachers. So the program was designed for teachers, right? But I was interested in the research aspect. So my PhD at NC State focused on STEM education, research, and policy. And I really wanted to focus on the things that I cared about, which was broadening participation in STEM, supporting underrepresented students, really how do we enhance science self-efficacy and science identity? How do we resource teachers better? So all of the things were the things that I cared about in my personal life that I was able to actually, develop expertise in now. And I speak about that all around the country, as well as my volunteer outreach at the K-12 level.
Interesting. At least from most of the PhDs that I know, when they start their PhD programs, they're thinking about entering academia when they're done. But at least because you started yours after 15 years of working in the industry, I'm guessing that wasn't your goal?
No, I had no interest in no slight to academia, but I had no interest in academia at all. I really, was open to going back to industry. So basically over the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of these decisions develop, like, director of diversity and inclusion, or we've seen a lot of the industry companies actually put resources into departments focused on STEM outreach and education and engagement. So that was something that I actually saw myself, going back into. But one thing I, knew that I wanted to do was not just work in this space of broadening participation as a volunteer, but actually develop expertise and get credentialed in it. And a PhD is the highest degree. And I also really wanted to focus on the research and, providing best practices and, strategies and resources for K-12 teachers as well as STEM faculty. And that's, one of the things that I do now at AAAS. What actually led me here to DC was the AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship. So I was selected as a Science and Technology Policy Fellow in 2015, which brought me here to DC. And I really like to plug that fellowship because it really changed the trajectory of my career and my life. So the AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship engages STEM professionals at all levels. You have to have completed a PhD in a STEM field or STEM education field, and it brings anywhere from 200 to 250 STEM professionals to Washington, D.C. to work on national science policy initiatives throughout all of the federal science agencies. And I worked at the Department of Justice at the National Institute of Justice in the Office of Forensic Sciences. And then from there, I was hired at AAAS in 2017 to become a STEM program director and do the work that I'm doing now.
Interesting. Yeah, this is not anything I've really ever heard of before. So the initiatives that you're involved with AAAS, what exactly are I guess examples of those initiatives that help to broaden STEM participation?
Sure. I mean, let me just explain AAAS because a lot of people have never heard of us, but AAAS, or the American Association for the Advancement of Science, is the largest and oldest general scientific organization in the world. We were founded in the 1800s, and we have approximately 200,000 members all across the country. So our mission is to really enhance science, technology, and engineering for the benefit of all people. So that's a huge mission, right? But within AAAS, and a lot of people in the STEM field know us from Publishing Science magazine. So that's one of 5 of our family of journals that we publish. But we are a nonprofit member-based organization. But within AAAS, I am a STEM program director in the Department of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. And so what does that mean? So in my professional life, I manage STEM education programs that are focused on broadening participation at the undergraduate, graduate, and postdoc level. So most recently, I used to manage the L'Oreal for Women in Science Fellowship. I have a number of National Science Foundation funded grants that I manage, such as the Emerging Researchers National Conference in STEM, which I'm working on now. This is a conference, the EARN Conference is a conference that we hold every February in Washington, D.C. We support about 1,000 undergraduate and graduate STEM majors to come present their research. And the focus of that conference is, developing science communication skills, really supporting our students in helping them enhance and hone their skills in presenting scientific data, speaking about their research within their field, being able to understand research across fields and other disciplines, and really helping them hone their presentation and scientific communication skills. So that's a big focus of that conference.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny you mentioned conferences. So I've written quite a bit about conferences. And when I worked as an engineer in medical devices, and I had to go to conferences as part of my job. And every now and then, you go in and sit down and listen to one of those conference talks. I'm glad that you all have a conference where you're really helping students in getting better in presentation skills. Because a lot of those conferences you go to, and you go to those conference talks, if you were sleepy, that's probably that's probably not the place to go. Because you're falling asleep pretty quick. Because typically what happens is people will get up in front of everybody, they'll read the slides, they won't look at anybody, and then once they're done, they get off the stage, and then the next person gets up and does the exact same thing, and it's just it's not helpful. But,
well, the benefit of science is to science is supposed to benefit society and benefit the world. And if you can't really, and again, in my personal life, I've been mentoring for over 20 years. I mentor students across fields, but I have a special focus on mentoring students in chemistry and chemical engineering. And I really, try to convey upon them, nobody cares about your research if you can't explain the significance, right? So I help them with 2-minute elevator pitch, because especially if you're a STEM major, you're really engrossed in the details and the minutia of your research. But if you can't convey that to the broader audiences or to lay audiences, why is it important to support your research? If somebody had $500,000 to contribute to you, why would they contribute to you to fund your research if you can't explain the benefit to the public in a very short and concise manner? So all of that requires training and, development of those skills. So I do a lot of that, type of mentoring in my personal life as well, which is my other area.
The whole motivation for me even building the online course in public speaking that I did, it stemmed from my own struggles in public speaking, and you nailed it. If you have all this technical expertise, but if you're not able to convey it to an audience, then it really doesn't go anywhere. And I had to give presentations in front of management, and a lot of the management don't have technical backgrounds. And I firmly believe that some of my projects got canceled, at least initially, when I first started doing these presentations, because I wasn't able or capable. I didn't do a very good job of conveying the information. And I didn't want to keep looking like I had to give these presentations every month. And I didn't want to look like a fool every time I had to get presented in front of the CEO, so I knew I had to get better at this public speaking thing. So
Right.
I get up there and just bumble through it, and I get up, get off there, in front of the lectern, just kicking myself the rest of the day, thinking, man, I did a really bad job, and I get
Right.
tired of having that feeling. So when it comes to you and your job at AAAS, how does public speaking at all relate to it, and if so, how?
Oh yeah, I speak all over the country. I have a pretty heavy speaking schedule. Again, I have two lives: my professional life and my personal life, where I also do outreach. But so to represent AAAS, I speak at all of the major STEM conferences. I speak at SciCNS and ABRCAMS and American Chemical Society, the Nova Shea Conference. So it's a lot of acronyms, but pretty much all of the major conferences I speak at across the country, not just on AAAS professional development opportunities, but also, my work, 25 years of mentoring, really providing, again, resources for at the K-12 level, at the undergraduate and graduate level. So I speak on all of those different topics. I speak on my research on broadening participation in STEM and what are those best practices. So I do a lot of speaking all the time. And, I wasn't great at first, but it takes practice. It really takes knowing your audience and doing doing the research. All of the conferences are different. Like, what do they really care about? What are the topics that are really helpful and beneficial, to your audience? So it does take some research to, do that up front. And really personal branding has a lot to do with it too. So you really want to, always really show what your personal brand is and what you're about. And that's something that I get a lot of questions about on LinkedIn. I, reach out to students or reply to students about how to develop their personal brand in ways that they can share their research and what they're working on through social media without doing a formal presentation, or just make people aware, especially if you're looking for a job or an internship, fellowships. Like, they really, students really should be communicating what they're doing, using social media as a vehicle to share that. There are ways to share your research, what your interests are, and what opportunities that you're looking for without doing a formal presentation. If you're at a conference, just say, hey, I'm presenting on polyoxymetallase, come check me out, X so and so. So there are ways to really communicate what you're doing without doing a formal presentation. So those are some of the things that I, work with my mentees about as well.
Something that you said, Iris, really stuck out to me, and it's knowing your audience. I remember when I first started giving those presentations in front of management, I didn't take that into account at all. And it definitely showed. I'd get questions during the presentation that I didn't anticipate. It's because I wasn't thinking about what they actually wanted to hear. I was just thinking about putting some stuff on slides and then going up there, reading them, and then getting off the lectern as quickly as possible. But it's really important to know your audience when it comes to public speaking.
Yeah.
I firmly agree.
There's something that I just did that you shouldn't do is just like throw out a bunch. I'm in DC, so I'm in acronym city. So throw out a bunch of acronyms that people might not be familiar with. But yeah, so especially when I have to remember I'm in this environment where we use acronyms all the time, So just like, taking it back a minute and thinking about, well, your audience might not be familiar, with particular acronyms or things that you're talking about. So again, just really thinking about your audience and, what might motivate them. And especially here in Washington, D.C., where we have a heavy emphasis on advocacy and science policy at the national level. So I speak at congressional briefings a lot. I'm an advisor in science policy. So I advise federal agencies on science policy. And again, you may, be in the hallway or in the elevator with a congressperson or representative, and you really have to make your case quickly, maybe in 20 to 30 seconds. So being in this whole world of, science policy and advocacy, as a AAAS science and technology policy fellow, we really got a lot of training in how to make your case quickly, especially with controversial topics like, climate change or, other issues like that. You really have to be able to make your case quickly and really get consensus. And be able to explain what you're trying to do to lay audiences who may know nothing about your particular area of expertise.
When it comes to public speaking, do you have a process for preparing your presentations? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, it depends. If it's something that I'm really comfortable with, a lot of times I can talk, off the top of my head. I do, make an outline or kind of like bullet points, but I don't like to put a lot of details. I really kind of go by bullet points. Sometimes I can pull from, I presented so much, I can pull pieces from multiple presentations and put something together. I'm extremely busy and travel a lot. So sometimes I really literally put a presentation together the day of the presentation, which I don't, recommend, but, working everybody has their own way of working. Some things I can pull together very quickly, depending on the topic. I may have to do more research and that might take more time. I do like to have, again, do the research on what type of audience, what type of conference is this? What is the focus? Is it education? Is it more STEM? Is it more research? Is it more policy? So, what's the sector? What is the area? What's the type of environment? I try to anticipate barriers and try to lower those barriers, again, with maybe, expounding upon things that might not be clear. So it just depends. And, again, what are the barriers that may be going on in the country that may affect your message, coming across. So there, those are a few tips, but I do try to, kind of go by high level bullet points. And again, it depends on my familiarity with the topic. My research I can talk about all day long because I conducted that, right? But when I'm, maybe trying to pull from, research from a body of work that I'm not familiar with, then I would have more preparation in one of those.
Yeah, you know what? I'm a firm believer in bullet points too, and the idea of memorizing a speech word for word can get kind of tricky, because if you miss a word, that can potentially throw you off, and then you don't know where you're at in this presentation, and then you're kind of thrown into a tizzy. As opposed to having bullet points and making sure you hit each bullet point, I think it's a more effective strategy. So I commend you for that, for sure. When it comes to public speaking, do you ever get nervous? And if so, how do you deal with your nerves?
All the time. I get nervous all the time. And again, I've been speaking for over 20 years, and it just happens. But, like I said, it depends on the familiarity. If I'm talking about my research, I can talk about that all day long. If I'm talking about my love for, my work in the community and, STEM education and working with parents and teachers, I can talk about that all day long. So it really just depends. I tend to talk really fast, so I have to remind myself to slow down. But yeah, I get nervous a lot most of the time. Once I start speaking, and if it's something I'm passionate about, like this area of work, it pretty much settles down then. But I get nervous all the time, and I've been speaking for over 20 years.
I think getting nervous is natural, and it's just a sign that you actually care about what you're talking about.
Right.
If you didn't, then you probably wouldn't get as nervous.
Yeah.
You don't really care. You don't care what the outcome is.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So, are there any other tips that you would have for people who want to become more effective at public speaking?
So I think Toastmasters are still around. So there are clubs, especially for students. Practice on your friends. I think if you're a STEM major, at the undergraduate or graduate level, or even if you're a K-12 student and you're trying to prepare for like a science project, definitely bounce it off of your friends. Like, I think it helps to practice in front of people that know your area and people who know nothing about, again, like I say, polyoxymetallase, because that was my friend, in graduate school. She was in inorganic chemistry and I was in organic chemistry. And I just remember her saying polyoxymetallase. And I was like, I don't know what that is. But you definitely want to get kind of two perspectives, like, practice in front of somebody who knows your area, who's kind of like in your field, and somebody who knows nothing about your area or your field, because that will tell you, hey, are you, too, heavy focused on the minutia? If somebody who doesn't understand your research can understand the benefit of it, even if they don't understand the technical terms, that's a good sign that you're on the right track. So I would definitely practice, with kind of two groups, somebody who knows nothing about what you do and somebody who's definitely in your field that can give you more of those, kind of technical tips.
That's an excellent point. Talking to people with both kind of at both extremes, I guess. The people that know your stuff well and the people that don't know your stuff well. You're able to cover everything and in both those groups, and you pretty much know you're going to cover the people in the middle as well. So you kind of it kind of, what's the best way to say this? It covers the most ground, I suppose.
Definitely.
So, is there anything else that you'd like others to know about things that you're working on?
Really go to the AAAS website. Again, we have, we do a lot, again, across levels. We have a lot of resources for teachers at the K-12 level. We have a lot of resources for, students at the undergrad and grad level, as well as faculty. We have programs across all those levels. I really enjoy this work. My professional life, again, a lot of my personal life is focused on the K-12 outreach, working with teachers directly, really helping teachers learn how to teach science from a culturally relevant perspective, because that's really key. I feel like particularly our students who are underrepresented in STEM, some of the barriers start, at the K-12 level, and not getting the exposure, not having access to quality STEM education, not having access to quality teaching. And I love teachers. I am a teacher. Also, a lot of teachers who teach math and science aren't trained in math and science. They have general education degrees. So I think it's important for teachers to partner with STEM professionals who actually have the content expertise and the training to really give students a really comprehensive view of STEM fields and how it actually impacts the rest of the world, and benefits society. Because I feel like if you can't connect the science that you learn in the classroom to your everyday life, it doesn't have much of utility. So I think that's really important for us to partner as STEM professionals, to partner with teachers. They have, I think it's one of the hardest jobs there is, being in the military, being a teacher, and being a parent. So I think that those are the three hardest jobs. So definitely check out AAAS, AAAS.org. Again, we have a lot of resources. We do a lot of advocacy for science, technology, and engineering. Again, we're a membership organization. And again, my world at the professional level focuses on, again, that higher education piece. But in my personal life, I cover the K-12 piece and do a lot of, work in the community, which I love. But one thing I would say is, if you're a STEM professional, even if you're not credentialed in STEM or in education or science policy, there are a lot of ways that we can encourage students on a day-to-day basis. There are a lot of ways that we can encourage teachers and encourage parents, because at the end of the day, I'm really passionate about this work because we have some really challenging problems to solve on a global level, and we need to, engage and value and leverage all of our human capital to solve these really important issues and problems that we have to solve.
You said something really interesting about how science can affect your everyday life. And that was actually one of the motivations for me writing my children's book. And you also said something about, being K through 12, that really being the place where whether someone believes they can do science or not happens. By the time you get to college, it's kind of too late. And the reason I wrote and that was another motivation for me writing my book, I wanted it to be for young kids, ages maybe ages 5 through 8. And I wanted them to have the confidence to know that there are no careers that are off limits to them. And STEM, of course, is definitely one of them, because STEM is the future. It's definitely something to consider. And with the idea of also relating it to everyday life, the book is actually about my nephew asking me why his hair is the way it is. And I use science to answer the question.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I developed a whole curriculum series on the chemistry of Black hair care products. So that's that's amazing. I will definitely share your work as well with my network.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so essentially I'll make it a series at some point, and it'll always be my nephew asking me a question and me using science to answer it. And the whole goal of it was to just increase that, as you said, increase the human capital of people that are at least consider STEM careers. I don't think you can tell people you have to do STEM, but at least let them know that it's an option.
Right, and I think that's so important what you mentioned, because the goal of what I do is not to make not to, encourage every student to be a STEM professional, but just the preparation and the skills that you develop, with any STEM content, whether it's at the K-12 level, the undergraduate or graduate level, there are some really critical skills embedded in the STEM curriculum, like problem solving, critical thinking, and teamwork. And regardless of whether or not you go into a STEM field or major in STEM, those skills are important for any job. So to me, it's not just a matter of trying to get everybody to go into a STEM major or a STEM field, but we want to develop really engaging, critically thinking citizens. So it's about citizenship, right? You should be able to engage and, be a beneficial part of your society. So STEM education is one way to help develop those skills and preparation. But it's about citizenship and being an engaged, an informed citizen.
Yeah, for sure. This has been really an interesting discussion. Thanks for taking time to speak with me, Iris.
Thank you so much.
What are some ways that people can actually get in touch with you?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very engaged on LinkedIn, and as you know, I do reply and respond. It may take me a while, but I do answer all the questions that I get on LinkedIn. And so you can reach me on LinkedIn, Iris Wagstaff on LinkedIn, or you can go to the AAAS.org website, and you can find me there as well.
Wonderful. Again, everybody, my name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is Teach the Geek to Speak. It's a public speaking course. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care.
Thank you.